Hello and welcome to another episode of Woodward's Watercolours. Now, I had the privilege of leading a workshop up in Portstewart, which is very close to where we're actually painting today. And one of the reference images that we looked at and painted was this one that we're going to look at today. We're drawing the beautiful headlands that are, I was going to say available, that are visible when you're standing on the coast just around the corner a little bit from the beautiful Ballycastle in the north coast in Northern Ireland. And as it is with most workshops that you do, you end up teaching yourself or uncovering to yourself elements of the process that you go through that you actually weren't aware of before. So come with me and we're going to tackle this scene together the way that I've learned to tackle it. So come on now, let's have a look at this together. Okay, so let's settle into a nice little painting and a very simple outlining session in regard to this lovely scene from Ballycastle. So what we're going to do first of all is we've got these Unipin pens. And this is just a little pack of 5 now. I've had this pack for about 4 or 5 years. I think I replaced one of them, but just fantastic, the longevity of them, and they're instantly waterproof. Unipin fine line water and fade proof pigment ink, so they're just fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin, I always begin on the left hand side, so we're just getting the basic kind of rough outline of this headland here, trying to get the shape that we see that little extra line there. That's not a concern to me. You can call it a mistake if you want. People avoid using pen because the pencil accommodates the insecurity of, well, what if I get it wrong? But in actual fact, you're far better jumping in with pen and just having a good go with it. So we're just getting these kind of brief outlines, and then this one that further on in the distance, I'm going to try and lean even that little bit lighter again, just with the pen to capture that sense that it is further on in the distance. And then this one again is just further up like this. I'm going to, with my brother, across to Rathlin Island in a couple of weeks' time, and I am planning to be doing a video of while we are there, so really looking forward to that. Then the horizon line, interestingly now, just goes that little bit across here, just that little bit underneath, because there's actually nearly a little bit of a gap of light that just sort of expands as you go across there. So that's the height of the detail for this drawing. Really simple, just bang a little bit of that signature in here. Oh, just forgot as well, the other thing that I want to do is using a thicker. So that one was this one, the initial one was a 0.1. This one is a 0.8. So what I'm going to do with the thicker one is just pick out where those darker lines are and those lines of shadow. So I find that really helpful, and just brings that little bit more depth to the picture that will not be there unless I'm adding this in with these darker lines. And it just is such, I find it such an effective way of just bringing in that little bit more contrast, depth, detail, just even noticing a couple of things that I hadn't noticed there before. So that is the height of the drawing, and what we're going to move to next is adding the watercolor. Okay, so as you can see, I've got 3 brushes that I'm planning to use today. We've got the pointed wash, it's an Aquafina Rowney, and it's a number 6. And then we've got my trusty faithful one, the Rowney Simply Range Flat Wash 3/4 inch. And then we've got this little, it's probably lesser quality now, but it's Sostrene green, and I absolutely love it. It's like the baby of this larger one. So what we're going to do first of all is we need to figure out what this color actually is that we're seeing, and hopefully I'll be able to put the photograph just here on the top left. So hopefully you can see it there too. So I'm doing my 3 lifts of water, and this is going to be the dominant color that we're using today. So what I want to do is to take this, now let me get my little color swatch card, to take the Cobalt Turquoise. So the Cobalt Turquoise is a go-to for me for all kind of sea scenes really. So what I'm looking to do is take it, and then I'm going to do a crazy thing and take some of the Quinacridone burnt orange, I'm going to add it in, and there we are. It needs a little bit. I'm going to add in, now it's risky adding in Pthalo blue because it's so strong, but this I think is predominantly the color mix that we're going to go for, a little bit more of that Pthalo blue. So what I've added there is, if you're using the Daniel Smith range, I have used Pthalo blue. Sorry, first of all I went to Cobalt Turquoise, then I added in Quinacridone Burnt Orange, then I added in Pthalo blue to get it to a point. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is add in just a little bit of cerulean blue, just to lift it that little bit. Now, this is for the sky. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it as a lovely, splodge it on down there. I am not going to overpaint over those headlands. This is simply about doing the sky. So, because it's using cold pressed paper, this is Sea White of Brighton paper, it's going to have the little bumps in it because it's cold pressed. It's going to then fall in, the pigment's going to fall into those, hopefully give it a lovely effect, and it wouldn't be me unless I did just a little bit of a splat down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this off with my trusty hairdryer, and then we're going to come back and work on the next layer. Okay, so we've got this layer as dry as I need it to be for this section. The next thing that I'm going to do is begin to tackle the sea. Now, I'm taking the flat edge brush for this, and what I'm going to do is I need to mix up a little bit more of this color. So what I find is that I get into this pattern, if I'm doing something that really is very simply one color, then I go back and get the Cobalt blue for the sea, then I add in the Quinacridone burnt orange, and then I add in some of the Pthalo blue. Now that's too much. So mixing colors is always this pendulum swing. So I'm going to use the Quinacridone burnt orange to earth it down, and I may add just in a little bit more of that cerulean blue, not cerulean blue. Let me get my names right here. Cobalt Turquoise. Okay, so we're taking it. Now what we're doing is we're holding the brush like this, and we're going to just move it across in this kind of a motion. Now the sea against the horizon line is darker, so we are just wanting to notice now what way the line's going. So we're looking at the reference image, and we're seeing now they're going to start to twist just out at a bit of a line here. So I want to begin to do that. Just keeping the brush moving, a bit like whenever I'm drawing, I keep that kind of a fluid sort of brush motion to make it, give it a lovely, nice and loose feel, rather than something that is too premeditated and too organized. And I'm not really wanting to get in loads of the idea of the spray, but I am just going to press in a little bit in some areas and see if we can't capture that a little bit. Now the other thing I can do is to capture different parts that are darker than others is just drop in some of that pigment in a couple of places, so it's going to dry that little bit sort of darker. Now we're going to get this bit dry now, and then we'll move on. Okay, so now we're going to move on to this headland. And what I'm going to do with the headland is I'm going to take the colour obviously that I've used for the sea and for the sky, and we're going to begin to draw it across here. Now we're not going to fill this whole area in, because what we want to do is when we're layering it up is add in just different sort of textures through the different layers. So there's almost like sort of bushes and things up here, so we're just pressing down with the brush. We're using the little baby pointed wash for this one, then the colour pool in this area, and then we're going to wash across here because it's a nice thick covering, and then we're just going to wash across here with a lighter colouring, and it's ever so slightly gone over those lines, but we're not concerned about that. I think that a lot of the time what I see of watercolour is the artists need to control it, and yes, of course there is control, but I mean some of these cauliflowers and things just for me adds to the whole experience of using the watercolour. watercolor by its very nature is quite serendipitous. You know, it does really what it wants to do, or what it's going to do, and it's lovely when you let go and just start to work with it, you know, rather than trying to control it into something other than it is. You know, it's not oil, it's not acrylic, it's not gouache, it's something other. And when you learn to work with it, it's just a lovely thing. So I'm just building up these layers really to give this idea of the rippling waters here. So we're just going to continue to do this, and we're going to work this through in several different layers. And we can do some nice broad strokes. Now we need to connect that in because that'll just look all blocky. So we need the sea to be darker than the sky, which that's already beginning to achieve just with layer 2. Isn't that remarkable that just with layer 2, you're starting to see a difference between the sky and the sea, and we're using the same color. So let's get this dry, and then we'll add on to the headland, and we might do a bit of a wash over some of this as well, and also leave little pockets where it is much darker as well. Okay, so as I've said many times before, watercolor when it's dry is waterproof, so therefore we can continue to add. That's the premise that I'm working on here. So, and also the other lovely thing about using a single color for a scene, I mean this is for me a very peaceful color as well, is I'm going back through the colors that I used before, taking the Cobalt, Turquoise, tend to do them in the same order so that I can remember them, the burnt orange, the Quinacridone burnt orange, and then a little bit of the Pthalo blue. Just going through these colors, I'm going to mix it back to the color that I'm looking for. Now you maybe can, Daniel Smith has a huge range of colors, and I would say that you could probably find that exact color in a tube somewhere, but there's a joy to mixing colors, and I have always really enjoyed it and found real freedom in it, and you know, like a feeling of success and accomplishment in it as well, of being able to mix the color for myself. Also the inexpensive nature of being able to mix your color. When you can mix a color for yourself, you're not forever reliant upon somebody else mixing it for you. And I think, like all these things, it takes time, and it is a skill that we have to learn, and it's not going to happen instantly, and it's worthwhile persevering in. So there's my 2 pennies for that. Now the other thing that I want to do, just want to flick off into the headland there. Just find sometimes that same color again, the intensity of that will add a little something something to the, just a little something something to the picture. Okay, so now we said that in some areas we're going to do a wash across, so let's get a nice wash across the horizon there. Just picking out in the image, where can I see some areas that are darker than others. I'm just trying to highlight those. It's like whenever I'm going around with that thicker pen, I'm looking to see, okay, so where are there areas that are just that little bit darker than others. Changing the angle of the brush, using the corner of it, just to give that sense of some waves here, and also across here. I'm just gonna do that again. And one thing that I want to really highlight is this is a reference image. I am not looking to be photorealistic, and that is so liberating, because I think that for most, when they're, you know, when you're starting out painting, there can be such disappointment because you're thinking, oh, the colors are wrong, and I've got this wrong, and actually the maturity is effectively finding your own voice as an artist and just taking that where you want to take it and how you want to take it. Now, I think that we're nearly there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry one more layer, and then I think I'll add just a couple of finishing touches. I'll maybe mix it that bit thicker as well, and then we can finish off. Okay, so this is now the final layer, and what we're going to do is I want to, just as I was looking at it and I was drying it there, I want to darken down this section just a little bit with this lighter wash that I have here. So we're taking it really quite carefully and just adding it across here. And the other thing that I want to do is, while I've got this lighter wash, is sort of make sure that there's not loads and loads in the brush. Let's just take it and do, changing the brush can be so helpful. It's like using a different tool. It's just going to add in that little bit more to it. Okay, so we're just going to look in certain areas. Is there any areas where I just want to add in little bits of highlights? In some areas, maybe stronger highlights. We're going to let this layer naturally dry. So the other layers that we have used a hairdryer for the purposes just of speeding the whole process up, which is totally legitimate. But also it dries ever so slightly differently whenever it's allowed to dry naturally. So wanted to do that little splat in the corner. Now, if I think that some of those are too much, which I do think ever so slightly, I'm just going to lift them. Remember the old dab and grab with the brush. Another thing that we can do then as well is just lift off those little marks by rubbing them very, very gently with just a slightly damp brush, and that'll, you may end up with ever slight amount of speckle, but you're not gonna notice that too much. Now, what I want to do is I want to effectively use this as my water. I want to get the Cobalt Turquoise. I'm going to get a little bit of the burnt orange and then some of the Pthalo blue. I want to really find a thicker and richer mix of this color that I've been using, and I know how to get it now because I've been doing this now, this sort of rhythm of going around these colors several times. So I'm just thickening it up because there's two ways to get shadows in watercolor. One is to add a darker tone to it, and the other is to mix a stronger version effectively with less water. So we've arrived there now, and I just want to add that into this headland that is closest to me. And I'm really liking the color because I think the single tone is working well, but also I want to really show that that section is much darker than the others, and also this little bit of island here that is separate to that part of the headland needs to be kind of marked as being that little bit darker too. And I'm not covering it all over because that would be part of the style and part of the way I like to paint. But also for me, I think it makes it always feel that little bit more believable too. Another thing I can do is, because I've got this thicker mix, is just again go over some of those little areas, change the brush direction, not the brush direction, actually change the pressure of the brush at different points as well. And all remains for me now to do is to put my stampers on this bottom right corner. Although, do you know what? I think actually with this one, let's just leave it without the stampers. So there you are. There's Ballycastle. It has taken me less than half an hour from a very, very simple line drawing to finding the colour that I liked, really effectively memorising that pattern of mixing the colours and just working with the layers. And I'm really quite pleased with that. And you can let me know what you think. And there you are, very, very simply using one colour that we mixed with three colours in the Daniel Smith 24 half pan set. We used the Cobalt Turquoise, we used Pthalo Blue, and we used the Quinacridone Burnt Orange. Found the colour that I wanted and just really memorised that. I tend to find the pattern, even how I move around the palette, if I can remember that, I can get back to it. Mixing colours is a joy, and it also takes time.
Lovely to work on a scene so simply, just with the one colour. And the lines, if you go back to the start of the video, whenever I'm drawing it with those Unipin pens, it's really simple. It's just providing a very simple structure that I can then put the watercolour into and have freedom in that. The other point that I want to make today is that a reference image is a reference image. I'm not a photorealist painter. I don't have the skills to be able to do something that way. So letting go of that is really very helpful. And what we've ended up with in less than half an hour with the help of a hairdryer is quite a peaceful scene that to me I know is Ballycastle. Was really enjoyable to do, simple to do, just working with the layers of watercolour and the premise that watercolour is almost waterproof. Once it's dry, and you can layer it up and achieve something that is very simple, very pleasurable, very relaxing to do. As always, I love reading your comments. Do like and share and subscribe, and also share with me ideas for videos that you would like to see. I hope you find it beneficial. And that's me leaving now. Bye for now, and I'll see you soon.